Hey guys, so you can probably tell, but I've been pretty sick for the past couple weeks, so this is one of the first days I've actually been able to talk enough to make a video. But I found that when I'm sick, I get a lot more opportunity to contemplate and just be, because there's a lot less pressure on me to do, and I let myself just kind of relax and not have thoughts. And so that's what makes the place of no thought is what makes the really interesting insights available to have. So being sick can be a good thing, but not so good for speaking sometimes. So I wanted to make this video about ego backlash, and it's also going to tie in with a lot of my other insights that I had. And the cool thing about non-duality is I don't have to work to make it tie in so much as everything just inherently kind of does. So what is going on with ego backlash? What is the ego really? The ego is an arbitrary point of reference. It's a word that we make up to think of a concept that doesn't exist. So it already doesn't exist, but we do experience through feelings that don't feel good that come from the ego. And this is one of my big insights this morning, or topic of focus, if you will, that all the talk about having an inner dialogue, those thoughts that you actually hear, that are actually put into words, are not a problem. However, usually we are suspicious of those thoughts more than other thoughts, when as really it's the core. If you want to really get down to the root of the ego, it's through feeling, and it makes us feel bad. And it's really, really simple, but we think we know what the ego is. And so there's this continual, and this goes into the concept of the spiritual ego, which also doesn't exist. It's the ego reinventing itself. So we're always making a point of reference. This is what illusion is. And I had this insight where I envisioned a sphere, and I envisioned finding the center of the sphere. Now, the amazing thing about a sphere is that it's one surface, it's entirely one, but you, from an outside point, cannot see the entirety of the surface. And if you think of the moon and how we, through crazy geometry or whatever, astrology, astrological reasons, we don't ever see the backside of the moon. And just in that way, from our perspective, we never see the entirety of a sphere. Likewise, the center of a sphere is an arbitrary point that we point to, and each time we make that point, it's a concept. And if you consider what that concept actually is, it's another sphere. So it's infinite, that you can never find the center of the sphere. There's no point of reference. So back to the ego, back to self-inquiry, there's no self to feel bad about anything. There's no self to feel fear. There's no self to die. There's no self to protect itself. It's all completely an illusion. And the day I was having this insight, I laid down, and it was a windy day. It was a windy, sunny day, and the clouds were moving. I was looking up at the tree branches, and it felt I could switch my perspectives pretty easily, but almost the most intuitive feeling was that the trees and I was moving, and the clouds were staying still because they seemed to be further away. And so I realized how the illusion completely depends on the point of reference, and the point of reference doesn't exist. I talked about this on the forum that I'm part of, and a lot of people didn't understand what I meant by no point of reference, but what I was really meaning to do is to show how it points back to feeling. So when you first start to learn about the ego, you may use the ego as a point of reference to judge the thoughts of like which are good and bad, and it turns into another standard that you can judge yourself by. And that's the importance of feeling, that there's no, the real thoughts, the real root of our thoughts that are a problem are made known by feeling. And I also started contemplating how when I see somebody, when I meet someone for the first time, it's in an instant that I've made that judgment of whether I feel safe around them, whether I like them or not, all kinds of like feelings and everything based on survival instincts, based on the ego. Now, if I like them, the ego doesn't show itself. It doesn't rear its ugly head. And so if I have a thought, I can have a thought about myself, the illusionary I, which is completely not a problem. So I use this example. So if I say, I like apples, I'm talking about me, and I'm talking explicitly about an outside object and how I feel about it. But how does that thought feel? I like apples. Well, it feels true. It feels like a fact. It feels good. There's nothing wrong with this statement, even though I've explicitly said this. Now, if somebody close to me posted a thing on Facebook that was really judgmental and objectifying to women. And so I wasn't thinking about myself, but as I saw this, I kind of placed myself, did this mental gymnastics of placing myself in the position of the woman, identifying as a woman, holding the person who posted it to a standard. So all these kinds of points of reference, and me as though, but I was just a watcher, so I was indirect. And so it's not just the I. If you're just looking at the I and how you interact with things, how you relate to things, you're missing so many things. You're unconsciously making a point of reference somehow. And so it's only through feeling that we can know that. And I made the connection to how I was, it was like I was looking at the outside of my thoughts. So the thoughts that arose, the thoughts that I actually could communicate to somebody else, I thought were my thoughts. Whereas really the feelings were the things that came way before it. So 20 minutes after meeting this person, I'm like, well, I don't really know if she didn't make good eye contact. I can make all kinds of reasons. The truth is that judgment was made through feeling, and it happened in an instant. So why did that happen? And so this process is completely seeing this, bringing it to awareness without judgment. And this is where the ego backlash comes in. It's continually making a point of reference. It's continually making a self. So as you become willing to see your blind spots, as you become willing to see, in effect, what a monster you are to the egoic mind, until you are willing to do that, until you have enough self-love, enough meditation, enough disidentifying from this illusion, you won't be able to see exactly how damaging and feeling and damaging everything I say about it is a judgment. It is nothing to make ourselves feel bad about. And so the ego backlash is when it comes in and it says, I'm a spiritual person, I'm supposed to be holding myself to the standard. And it doesn't allow itself to move back and forth, and it uses the motivation of the ego to want to become a better person, to push itself in that direction, which is good, which is truly good. And the spiritual ego is nothing to be ashamed of. And it's nothing to be ashamed of to want to be good. But it doesn't feel good to hold us to a higher standard. So ego backlash is your friend telling you, whoa, hold on a second. You're holding yourself to a different standard. You've moved your point of reference. And so, yes, it's much better to live your life, to not have the same point of reference that we're kind of given as children, as this is our society's standards of morality and success. that you need to hold yourself to. So as a more conscious person, the first step seems to be moving that point of reference from the one you've been given to something a little more personal, to something a little higher. But eventually you'll find that it's the point of reference itself that's the ego that's making you suffer, that you want to go beyond. And when you lose that, it's complete groundlessness. And though in truth, this groundless feeling is love, and it is freedom, and it is everything you came here to be and experience, we still came here to wanting a sense of security and stability and wanting to be part of the illusion. And it's that we want the illusion to come through to us as beauty, as creation, as art, as a beautiful expression of love. We want to see beauty in other people's faces rather than judgment and threat. And essentially, to me, and in my personal journey, I think that things come through to us in our senses. And so some of our senses, that it's probably very visual to me, because as an artist, that's something that I trained early on and was just inclined to do. So a lot of my first insights came through visually. I can go through tons of them. There's one I was looking at, fall foliage on the contrast of it on the sky. I'm like, that is not real. There is no, like, I just knew it wasn't real. I knew it was a projection of my brain. And when you think about how the eye works, you think about the eye as it's a sphere. It's not a perfect sphere, but you think about it how when you stare into someone's eyes, you're staring into blackness. You're staring into their pupils. And it's like everything has no center, and seeing has no center. We have blind spots in the eye, and really all vision is peripheral. There's nothing we can point to. All of this illusion is a peripheral phenomenon that's going on. And we feel ourselves, when we feel threatened, to be the center of it. There is no center, and there does not need to be a center. And it's both bravery and it's both love to let go of that and to go into the groundless feeling. So I hope this video was helpful. I'm going to save any insights that I didn't get to for another one, because my voice is starting to give out. But thanks for watching. I'd love to know what you think. Please like this and share this if you have any friends who are interested in spirituality and non-duality topics like this. Thanks, guys. Bye.